All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone joining me on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program, and as always, it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's holy Sabbath day. Now with that, we're going to jump into this lesson, which is called Folly Days. Yes, it is that time again. We just come off of the final feast days, the Feast of Trumpets, and Atonement, and Tabernacles, and the 8th day. And now you know what season we're moving into, right? It's the season of the heathen. This is not for us or the children of Israel. I know it's a shadow of our former life, for most of us anyway. But we still have those who are lost and still running around and celebrating pagan holidays. Now, again, this is not one of those times where you need to go out and just beat people over the head and things like that. Obviously, those who have ears to hear will listen, and those who will not, hey, the choice is theirs, right? So again, we're going to address some of the upcoming man-made holidays, and we're going to look at some of their origins. I mean, I know when I was growing up, speaking only for myself, that it was never explained to me what we're doing. What is Halloween? What is that? Okay, why are we doing it? Now, we did celebrate it, don't get me wrong, but we didn't get any origins. We didn't get a reason why. It was just tradition, right? Then, I mean, you could throw in Thanksgiving. Why are we doing that? And of course, we get the story of, the Pilgrims and the Indians having dinner and all that, and everybody sang Kumbaya and had a good time, right? At least that's what you're told when you're growing up, right? At least I was. And obviously the biggest one of them all, you have Christmas. Now, as a little kid, obviously we love Christmas, right? Why? Because, hey, there's festivities and there's food and candy and gifts. It's all about us. And so we like those type of things. And then as we grow into adulthood, what do? We go into debt every year just to try to buy a bunch of gifts to people to make them happy, right? And we tell them the stories of Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. And we hear all those type of things, right? And then we cannot forget Easter. Right? We cannot forget Easter. So these are the biggest holidays in the West and really all around the world. But these are some of the biggest holidays in the West. And we never really get, well, when you were growing up before, you never really get a backstory, right? Where does it come from? What does it mean? Right? So I do this particular lesson every year. I'm going to give you guys some information on each of these holidays. This may be a two-parter because there's a lot of ground to cover. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Now, this one is not as replete with scriptures as our normal sessions, but it is replete with information that you need to know, information you may want to share with your children, information you may want to share with a friend, because a lot of times you say something to a friend or whatever, and coming from you, they don't want to believe it. Perhaps they may at least listen if it comes from somewhere else. So let's look at some of these things, right? So we know the folly days, okay? I don't call them holidays, but the folly days. We know it has a lot of abomination and idolatries and paganism, all right? But if you come at someone like that, just a bull in a china shop, a lot of people, they won't listen. So you have to, I believe that most of the time we have to have more of an academic approach. I know, judging for myself, if someone is explaining something to me, you have to come from an academic perspective, right? You can't just come emotional. I'm not really going to listen to that. You can't come just angry. I don't even know you, right? So if you're going to come with me with more of, an intellectual approach to say, hey, listen, this is what I find. Let's look at the evidence, things like that. I mean, the Bible says, come, let us reason together. So if you come and reason with me, I'm going to listen. So I would suggest you do the same thing when you are trying to minister to someone or trying to get information to them. Reason with them, okay? Doesn't mean that everyone's going to listen, because sometimes it's just not in their time to hear it, right? They may not have ears to hear. But if it's in their time, our approach does matter. Yelling at someone, getting in their face, doing drive-by scriptures and using the Bible like a rifle, that's just not gonna do it. It's not as effective. So with that, let's go ahead and deal with the first one that's coming up. Since we're approaching, getting in October and approaching, we're gonna go ahead and deal with Halloween, like what it is, what it comes from. And again, these resources, you can go online, you just Google it. It can be Wikipedia, it can be the Encyclopedia Britannica, whatever resources you want to use. But my only suggestion is to look at various resources, right? Look at various ones, okay, to go ahead to see if there's some corroboration, right? You need more. It's like when you do a term paper in college, you know, you got to have multiple sources. You don't want to have just one, right? You want multiple sources to corroborate your story. So with that, Halloween or All Hallows Evening, right? So we're going to look at those. And this one was in Wikipedia. It may still be there at the same time, but I clipped it a little bit, I clipped it a couple of years back or whatever, but still it stands. Halloween or Halloween, right? So it's All Hallows Eve is a contraction of All Hallows Evening, right? Halloween is a contraction, okay? Halloween means All Hallows Evening, right? And it's also known as All Halloween or All Hallows Eve or All Saints Eve. It's a yearly celebration observed in a number of countries on the 31st of October, the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day, right? So this is a Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day, right? So again, I've seen plenty of Christians. I mean, I can't be the only one. I've seen plenty of Christians still celebrate this day, right? So they're saying, hey, what's the harm, right? It initiates the Triduum of All Hallow Tide, the time in the liturgical year dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints or hallows, right? It's the time to do that. Oh, see, that sounds good. I mean, you know, we need to remember the dead and all that, right? Okay, so they're going to soft sell it to you. The saints, the hallows, martyrs, and all the faithful departed believers. Within All Hallow Tide, the traditional focus of All Hallows Eve revolves around the theme of using humor and ridicule to confront the power of death, okay? So basically, make fun of death, right? We're talking about the origins, right? You just make fun of death. I know right now in modern day, that's not what we do. They dressed up in costumes and go around the neighborhood and trick or treat and all that. I get it, but we're gonna go to the origins. Traditions evolve over time, right? So, it's normally used for humor to ridicule and confront the power of death. According to many scholars, All Hallows Eve is a Christianized feast initially influenced by Celtic harvest festivals. So, I can tell you this. I know that I wasn't told this when I was young. Okay, I wasn't told this when I was a young lad. Okay, with possible pagan roots. Possible? How about definite? Possible pagan roots, particularly the Gaelic Samhain, right? It looks like Samhain, but Samhain, pronounced Samhain. You're going to hear that a couple of times, right? Other scholars maintain that it originated independently of Samhain and has solely Christian roots, right? So either it originated from, Samhain, or the Christians made it up themselves, came up with the tradition themselves, right? Either or, right? Or they may have borrowed. Okay, we know when it comes to the Roman Empire, they borrowed from all the empires that was before them, right? They borrowed from the Babylonian Empire. They borrowed from the Medo-Persian Empire. They borrowed from the Greek Empire. I mean, look at the mythology. Look at it. Hercules and Hercules, Jupiter and Zeus, and Mercury and Hermes. Need I go on, right? So they borrowed from these different empires that came before them, right? And then we have typical festive Halloween activities include trick-or-treating or the related guising, right? Trick-or-treating, guising. Attending costume parties, decorating, carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns, lighting bonfires, apple bobbing, visiting haunted house attractions, playing pranks, telling scary stories, and watching horror films. Let me pause right there. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Is any of this something that you have done, at least heard of or seen, right? In many parts of the world, the Christian religious observance of All Hallows Eve, including attending church services and lighting candles on the graves of the dead, remain popular. It still goes on. It still goes on today, guys. It didn't just fade away in obscurity. Although in other locations, these solemn customs are less pronounced in favor of a more commercialized and secularized celebration. Of course, now, it's with superheroes and everything is all nice and all that. I mean, hey, look, I grew up on comic books and the 80s cartoons and your He-Mans and all that. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't know all these things. I grew up on that, right? But what they're doing is that now, I mean, it was about, Halloween was mainly about scary characters, your werewolf and Frankenstein and witches and all that, and warlocks and all that, right? It was mostly that, and the mummy and all that, right? And now they're kind of, commercializing it a little bit and having nicer, friendlier characters and stuff like that. But Halloween, same thing, right? I mean, it's not about superheroes and all that, even though people get dressed up and all that. It's not about that, but it's about this acknowledging of the dead and remembering them and honoring them and lighting candles and all that stuff, right? It's about the origins of it, right? Okay, we know it's not about the superhero, because when this was done centuries ago, there was no such thing as these modern day superheroes. There was no Sailor Moon and Pokemon and all. That did not exist, right? So that's how we know it's not really about that. But all these scary movies all these scary characters are centuries old. Your Frankensteins and Draculas and all that, right? They're centuries old. Okay, so let's continue here. Solely Christian rules. Typical festival. Okay, we did all that. The bobbing of apples. Many parts of the world, church services, lighting candles on the graves of the dead remain popular. Okay, it's more secularized. But it says, because many Western Christian denominations encourage, although no longer require, abstinence from meat on All Hallows Eve. So they used to do that. Okay, don't eat meat on Halloween. Okay, that's back then. I told you it evolves. The tradition of eating certain vegetarian foods for this vigil day developed, including the consumption of apples, so that's where you got that from, colcannon, cider, potato pancakes, and soul cakes. Okay, so now you have an idea. I just want to bring you back to the origins, right? See, what you have today is just an evolution of what came before it, right? When it comes to Halloween. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit more here. And it says the historian Nicholas Rogers, exploring the origins of Halloween, notes that while some folklorists have detected its origins in the Roman feast of Pomona, the goddess of fruits and seeds, or in a festival of the dead called Parentalia, it is more typically linked to the Celtic festival of Samhain, which comes from the Old Irish for summer's end. So this is the end of summer. You're going into the fall, right? And again, like here in the West, when is Halloween? In the fall, right? Is the end of October, right? So for us, the summer is over, right? Okay. It says Samhain, right? Samhain it's spelled Samhain, right? But it is pronounced Sowin, Samhain, right? Samhain. Okay, so Samhain was the first and most important of the 4 quarter days in the medieval Gaelic calendar and was celebrated in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isles of Man. It was held on or about the 31st of October. Right? Or November 1st. Okay, the 31st to November 1st, right? And kindred festivals were held at the same time of the year by the Brittonic Celts. For example, Calan Gate, or in Wales, of Calan Gaeaf in Cornwall, and Calan Goan in Brittany. Okay, I don't know all these Gaelic titles, right? But Samhain and Calan Gate are mentioned in some of the earliest Irish and Welsh literature. The names have been used by historians to refer to Celtic Halloween customs up until the 19th century and are still the Gaelic and Welsh names for Halloween. It's still the same thing. So look at where the origins are coming from, right? This is the origins of Halloween, where it is coming from, okay? It's man-made traditions. Now, how much of this, okay, let me just ask you this before we go on. How much of this so far sounds like it comes from the Most High? How much of this is from the Bible? Like, this is what we should be doing, right? So, again, pagan roots, right? Pagan origins, pagan roots so far. Now, again, you can go and do your own research. Everybody has a little, got their fingers. Go ahead and Google and look at origins. You go, Origins of Halloween, right? At least look at the first 10 entries, right? And go look, and you're going to see some corroboration, all right? I know I did when I did it, right? When I conducted a little bit of research. I just decided to pick some of these, right? There's going to be some variations, right? There's going to be some variations because it's come from different people's perspective, but all roads are going to lead back to the same place, right? Samhain, okay? Samhain, we're going to look at that, okay? Which is another resource where we look at it over here. Let's see here. Okay. Samhain, okay, is a Gaelic festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year. It is celebrated from sunset on the 31st of October to sunset on the 1st of November, or about halfway between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. It is one of the 4 Gaelic seasonal festivals, along with Imbolc, Beltane, and Luke Nassag. Okay, I probably said that all wrong. Historically, it was widely observed throughout Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man, which we read earlier. And kindred festivals are held at the same time of the year. Gaelic islands, for example, the Baltonic Galan, and we read that. And then it says Samhain is mentioned in some of the earliest Irish literature and is known to have pre-Christian roots, which means it came first. And so Christian just copied off of it, but we know Christianity comes from Rome, and we already know Rome, as I said earlier, borrow from all these other cultures, right? Borrow from these other traditions, borrow from these other cultures, and say, hey, yeah, I like that. With Rome, it's a cafeteria plan. If they like what you're doing, they're going to adopt it, right? So let's just keep that in mind. Most important events in Irish mythology happen or began on Samhain. It was the time when cattle were brought back down for the summer pastures and when livestock was slaughtered for the winter. As at Beltane, special bonfires were lit. These were deemed to have protective and cleansing powers, and there were rituals involving them. Samhain, like Beltane, was seen as a liminal time when the spirits or fairies could more easily come into our world. Most scholars see the AOS psi, okay, or like spirits, as remnants of the pagan gods and nature spirits. It was believed that the AOSI needed to be appropriated to ensure that the people and their livestock survived the winter. Offerings of food and drink were left for them. The souls of the dead were also thought to revisit their homes. Feasts were had, and at which the souls of dead kin were beckoned to attend, and a place set at the table for them. Okay, so they made dinner and stuff for the dead souls. Come come eat with us. You know, this is back in that time, in those origins, right? This is talking about Samhain. This is what had happened. This is the things that they did. Okay. And it says offerings were left for them souls. Okay, and then feasts were had at which the souls of the dead kin were also thought to revisit the homes. Feasts were had at which the soul. Where are we here? Okay, right here. Mumming and guisings were part of the festivals, and involving people going door to door in costume or in disguise, as guising disguise, right? Or guisings, right? So this is where origins of trick or treat. Origins of trick or treat, because Samhain predates Christian Halloween, right? This is where it comes from. Let's look at that thing. This is where it comes from. Now, remember, everything we're reading here, this happened before Christian Halloween, right? So they're already having dinner. They're already dressing up in costumes and going door to door. They're already doing this, right? Let's see here. Often reciting verses in exchange for food. Reciting verses in exchange for food. Trick or treat. Give us something good to eat. Often reciting in exchange for food, okay? The costumes may have been a way of imitating or disguising oneself from the AOS side, right? Spirits, right? Divination rituals were also a big part of the festival and often involved nuts and apples, okay? Divination rituals, okay? Talking to the dead. Are we supposed to do that? This is what's happening, right? This is what's going on. Do we have a rule about talking to the dead, right? Do we have a rule about that? Did the first King Saul, that, you know, they say, oh yeah, he went to, was he supposed to go to the Witch of Endor? I know what he did. I'm asking you, was he supposed to do that, right? Okay. In the late 19th century, Sir John Rees and Sir James Fraser suggested that it was the Celtic New Year, and this view has been repeated by some other scholars. In the 19th century, the Roman Catholic Church shifted the date of All Saints' Day to 1st of November, while the 2nd of November later became All Souls' Day. The Roman Catholic Church, boy, they sure try to wave a mighty hand, right? They decided, okay, gonna see them come up a lot. All Saints, over time, Samhain and All Saints and All Souls merged to create the modern Halloween. See, now we get down to brass tacks, right? Historians have used the name Samhain to refer to Gaelic Halloween customs up until the 19th century. And once the 19th century hit, then we have the name change. We don't say Samhain anymore. Same thing. The Roman Catholic Church merged it and said, hey, you know what? All right, let's put this together. It's Halloween now. We like the bobbing for apples. We like that. Okay, let's do that. We like the dressing up, getting in disguise, and going door to door, you know, trick or treat and stuff. We like that. Let's keep that. We like honoring the dead. Okay, do they not do that? Lighting candles, honoring the dead and all that, talking to those spirits and all that. They like, we're going to keep that too. Let's keep that. But we need to switch the day and, you know. So we're not going to have Samhain and All Saints Day and All Souls Day and all that. No, Halloween. All Hallows Eve. This is what we read. This is in your history. This is what's in history, right? Let me get a little bit more. It says, since the latter 20th century, okay, now we're getting modern, Celtic neo-pagans and Wiccans have observed Samhain, or something based on it, as a religious holiday. Neo-pagans in the southern hemisphere often celebrate Samhain at the other end of the year, around April 30th, May 1st. In the southern hemisphere, the other side, okay? Guys, this I mean, what can I tell you? This is what we have. This is what we're working with. This is what we have. This is Halloween. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history as to how did we get here? How did we get here? And all roads seem to be leading back to Rome. But let's continue. We're going to go ahead and get a little bit in the Bible here. Okay? Let's look at this. In Revelation, I'm sorry, not Romans. Revelation 17. And let's pick it up at verse 1. Revelation 17, verse 1. Right? And it says, and there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, and with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. I want you to understand something here, okay? We know that Revelation speaks in apocalyptic language. It has a lot of imagery, okay? We understand that. Let's dig up the meaning here, right? We know that John the Revelator, he didn't see didn't look at many waters. He's describing something, right? It has very poetic language, right? And sit upon great many waters, right? Many people, many languages, things like that, right? With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, mixed, dealt with. We know Rome do a lot of fornication. They mix and match everything. They just, we like this, we like that. Let's do this, let's do that. Everything's cool, all that. Okay, it's a free for all. You can do whatever, right? Kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth, that would be us, have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, right? We get into it, we don't think it's no big deal, and if anybody talking about us back before coming into the truth, before our awakening, anybody tell us, hey, you go, like, what are you talking about? It's Halloween, it's harmless, it's nothing, it's Halloween, it's cool, what are you talking about? You know, kids have fun, trick or treat, candy, da 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 da, and all that. Of course, then you get the scary stuff like, oh, you know, back in the day, oh, well, you know, you got to inspect all the candy and all that, make sure there's no needles and razor blades and apples and all that other stuff, right? Sick, demented type stuff. So how about we just sign out, don't do any of that? Can you not buy your child a piece of candy anytime? You need a special day to give them a big bag of candy? You see? So let's not do that. Let's not do that. There's no need for us to actually have to do. See, this is what I'm talking about when we were blind, right? When we didn't know anything. Now watch this over in verse 3. It says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. This is this mixing and matching and all the idolatry and all, you know, like I said, all the idolatry and the idols and all the abominations and everything, because everything, how many religions, when you actually look at it, you can mix all types of things in there. Just everything. You can just put it all together, mash it up together, and it's just, you know, and that's why when he describes the beast, well, the 4 empires, right? When he describes Babylon and he gives that, you know, an animal, and he talks Medo-Persian, you know, like a bear and all that, and the Greeks like a leopard, and then the Roman, you can't really, it's like, it has this head, that tail, and this body, and all, because it mixes everything together. It did it with history, tradition, rulership. You know, it'll change times and laws. Oh, it just changes everything. Are we starting to understand? Are we getting it? It changes everything. I just have my little alfalfa right there. You're gonna have to forgive it. I'm in that beginning stage of these of these locks, so you're gonna have to just ignore it. So Revelation 18, right? Revelation 18, and I just want to read verse 3. Revelation 18, verse 3, and it says, "For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies," right? Everyone benefits. Just do this, just do that. Everyone benefits. Think about this. I want you to think about this for a second, in case you're wondering how it happens. You have a lot, well, I'm gonna speak for myself, because a lot of people say, man, you're speaking very presumptuously, right? I can't speak for your experience. I know what I hear when people talk to me, I know that. But I'll speak for myself. When I was going to Sunday church, and I've been to a number of them, just so you know, I've been to a number of them. I've been to Southern Baptist. I've been to Baptist. Been to Baptist and attend churches. First Baptist, Second Baptist, this, da, right? Been to Pentecostal. Been there. Been to the Catholic Church. A couple of services in that. Been to a charismatic church. You know, people jumping up and down and, you know, all in the spirit and frothing at the mouth and all that, so to speak. Been there. Did a lot of church hopping, right? Non-denominational was probably the biggest one, you know, with the longest I attended. But I did a lot of them, right? I went to a couple of Presbyterian services. Been to a number, searching for the truth, trying to navigate my way through this. Really seeking. So for years and years, I've been to a number of times. Went to Seventh-day Adventist church, you know, a couple of services there. Wanted to see what that was all about. Did it. Then I came to the truth. But I can say this. How they keep people in the seat. Because it's all about putting butts in the pews, right? So that the offering could be bigger. So they're going to say things not to offend. They're going to say things not to offend. So it's the same thing that the Roman Catholic Church had done as well. They wanted as many people to come into the church as possible. So they allowed a lot of things, and they integrated a lot of things. And our job is to be offensive. I know some things I may say, it may offend some people. I'm aware. Okay, I know. I know just being a messianic channel, just saying that, hey, you know, Israelites are trying to reveal the identity of the true Israelites. People are going to say, oh, that's just hate, right? It's just hate. And I'm just saying who we are, and all of a sudden I hate somebody. I understand that, okay? I know truth sounds like hate to people who hate the truth. I know that. And I know that these Sunday pastors are not really going to offend that many people. Okay? And I'm just talking from my own experience. I know they're not going to want to offend that many people. I know that. I lived it. I said it. I was every Sunday. I knew it. Okay? They say a little something, but what they want to ingratiate themselves to the people so that people feel a little bit better about donating and things like that. Instead of really focusing on what thus says the Lord. And those who are not trained and who did not study to show themselves approved, they don't even know sometimes when the pastor is double talking. When he say one thing and then 2 months later he says something totally different about the same subject or something, right? They don't know when they're double talking, right? Old Testament is done away. Give you an example. We don't have to do that. We got Jesus. Everything's good. Don't even worry about it. A month later, they're talking about the tithe, which the last time I checked is located in the Old Testament. And that's a law too. Not to mention it went to the Levites and all that, but hey, we got a lesson on that. But they don't want to offend. Right? And it's not about that. It's just about what thus says the Lord, and then people have to deal with it on their own. I'm not doing this to get likes, right? I'm not doing it. I mean, obviously I want to spread the word, but I'm not doing it just so everybody like me. You guys have no idea how many back and forth people they look at the channel, they see something, they pick out one thing, they disagree with me, and boom, that's what they talk about, right? That's what they talk. They say, oh, well, you said, that's all they want to do. They just want to fight, they want contention and all that. That's fine. So I just say that because I know not everybody is going to not everyone's going to like it. Some people, they like different flavors of teaching or whatever. That's it. So it is what it is. That's just how it is. Let's get back into these scriptures. Deuteronomy chapter 7. Okay, so we're still talking about Halloween. So let's get back into it. Deuteronomy chapter 7. And if we start at verse 25, we're going to find the graven images of their gods shall ye burn with fire. Thou shalt not desire the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared therein. For it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. So it doesn't matter that it's cool. It doesn't matter, well, it's cool. I mean, it's no harm. I don't need any trick or treat candy. I can buy Reese's Pieces anytime. Okay? If that's what I want. I can buy that anytime. I don't need to wait till Halloween to get that. Okay? So, no. You don't have to do that. 26. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house. Don't bring an abomination into your house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it. Okay? But thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. You know what? I want to look at that. Deuteronomy 7 and 25. Let's look at that. I want to look behind the words. Okay? Dealing with Deuteronomy 7 and 24? Okay. Actually, that's not what I said. I said Deuteronomy 7 and 25. Deuteronomy 7:25. Okay? And it says, the images of their God shall be burned with fire, and thou shalt not desire the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest it be a snare. Let's look at snare. Okay. Yakosh. Okay. A lure, entice, snare, lay a snare, a lure, set a trap. It's going to be a trap unto you. Okay. A snare, a trap. Right. So we're going to keep going. For it is an abomination, tohabah, okay, abomination, a disgusting thing, abomination, abominable, okay? In ethical sense, is of wickedness, right? And abhorrence, especially idolatry, okay, an idol, right? So we look behind that word, and then it says, neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thy house, for there be a cursed thing like it, but thou shalt surely detest. What does this mean? What does it mean to detest? Okay, let's look at that. Detest, the Hebrew 8262, shakatz, right? Is to detest, make abominable, count filthy, make detestable. Count it as a filthy thing. All the little idols, all the little graven images and stuff, you should hate it. You should detest it. You should see it as it's filthy. Not my words. Okay? And you should abhor it. Hebrew 8581. Tawab, right? To abhor, to be abominable, to do abominably, okay? To loathe, okay? Is hate, to loathe, to regard as an abomination, okay? To detest, abhor, to utterly abhor, to hate it a lot. Okay, basically you're gonna hate it like a lot. You're gonna detest it. You're gonna abhor it. So anything that's idolatrous, anything. Okay, shouldn't have like a crucifix or something like that. They're like, nah, I'm good. Nah, don't bring that in there. So the same candies that they repackage, it's the same stuff, right? Reese's Pieces are Reese's Pieces, right? The same candy, they repackage it and put little bats and spiders on it and all that. I mean, just don't. Just don't. Just don't. That's all you have to do, brothers and sisters. Just don't. You can have your Snickers and Kit Kats anytime. Avoid it that day. Or if it has the Halloween themes on it, don't bring it to your house. Just now, I'm good. Think about how silly that is when you can get the same thing anytime. Anytime, right? Anytime. You can't find it, you can probably find it on the internet. Well, they only have this at this time of the year and all that. I mean, is it really that important to you? Come give me a break. Is it really that important to you? And then you can find it. You can get it from a store. You can go on the internet, stuff like that. I mean, there was this big, I guess it's kind of a throwback, right? Like kind of a retro candy store out where, well, not close to me, but 45 minutes away or whatever. Big retro. I mean, candies from that I didn't even think they made anymore, right? And I'm not even that big. It's like a candy museum. I'm not really even that big on candy. But my point is that they have candies I thought was long stop in not being in production anymore, right? So you can probably find it just anywhere. But I digress. Let's get back into this word. Let's get back in there, right? Treat it like a cursed thing. Deuteronomy 18, if you will. Deuteronomy 18. And I'll pick it up at verse 9. 18 and 9 of Deuteronomy, it says, "And when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations," right? Don't forget about Halloween, right? Don't learn after that. "There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divinations, or an observer of times," okay, all these, just astrology and all this other stuff, okay, nope. "Or an enchanter or a witch," okay, palm readers and all that, you see that, you go to New Orleans, you can dime a dozen, right? Okay. "Or a charmer, or a consulter of familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer." Now, we have all this in modern day. They might be called something else, right? But necromancer, a person who talks to the dead, right? People who do seances. The charmers, familiar spirits, what are they trying to do? They're trying to call up the dead, right? Same thing as the witches of Endor, okay? We keep trying to make it something that's, spooky and doesn't exist. No, it still exists. You have that. You have tarot card readers. You got palm readers. You got people still looking in crystal balls and all that. You got people who, messing with, your chakras and all that other stuff, and Hindu. We got all that. People, I'm getting a message from the other side. You have all that, okay? It says, don't bother with them, right? So 11, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. "For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord." So these people are no good. You're dealing with someone who is an abomination unto the Lord. "And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God does drive them out from among thee." He gets rid of them, right? And these same type people exist today. Like I said, I know what the first king, I know what Saul did. I know what King Saul did, but was he supposed to do that? I mean, that's how you really respond to people, right? Because some people may throw that. Oh, well, King Saul. Okay, but he wasn't supposed to do that. He wasn't supposed to go to the witch end door and call up the dead. Or he wasn't supposed to do that. Okay, Deuteronomy 31. Okay, Deuteronomy 31, and let's pick it up at verse 14. It said, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thy days approach that thou must die. Call Joshua and present yourselves in the tabernacle of the congregation, that I may give him a charge. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle of the congregation. And the Lord appeared in the tabernacle in a pillar of a cloud. And the pillar of the cloud stood over the door of the tabernacles. And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go a-whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whether they go to be among them, and I will forsake and will forsake me, and break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them. And I will hide my face from them, and they should be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them. So that they will say in that day, Are not these evils come upon us because our God is not among us?" Right? So they're gonna sit up there, blame God, not keeping in mind that they're the one who's gonna break the covenant, right? 18. "And I will surely hide my face in that day from all the evils which they shall have wrought," right? "In that they are turned unto other gods." So he's telling you the reason why he's going to do it. He's telling you this is why I'm going to do it, because you about to go and serve other gods. And he's telling Moses and Joshua. He's letting Moses and Joshua know, listen, Moses, you're going to die. When you die, this people, they're going to go whoring after other gods, after the inhabitants of the land. They're going to do their own thing because it's going to look new and shiny. It's a new God. Oh, look how they worship their God. Let's try that. And he said, I'm going to have to punish him for it. And then when I punish him, they're going to be like, well, God's not with us. God's not with us. Why he leave us? Okay. Now, continuing in 19, he said, "Now therefore write ye this song for you, and teach it to the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel." Right. So you can read on, and he teaches them a song, so they can remember exactly what happened and why why the Most High did what he did. And why they're getting punished and all this other stuff. Trying to bring them back to remembrance. Trying to bring them back all these times. They are already going to break the covenant. I'm just telling you now, they're going to break the covenant, right? So let's go on over to Judges. Now we know you can read the book of Joshua. That's when Joshua took over from Moses and stuff. And then we already know, you look at the book of Judges. Oh, they just went hog wild. They were worse than some teenagers on spring break. They went hog wild. Okay, it was nuts. Okay, it was just complete nuts. Okay, read Judges every so often, they go whoring after other gods, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. Let's go to Judges. Let's go on over to Judges, right? Let's go to Judges. Okay, I'm gonna start at Judges chapter 2. Right? Judges chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 10. Okay? "And also all the congregation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel," which is why it's important for us to teach our children the ways of the Lord, right? Some of them will depart, some of them are going to stick with it. "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Baalim. And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, and of the gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. And they forsook the Lord, and served Baal and Ashtaroth. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them. And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies." So he made them lose. When they went into battle or another nation attacked them, the Most High made sure that they lost. Okay? "Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn unto them, and they were greatly distress. So this is what the Lord was telling Moses, when you die, this is what's going to happen. And then we're looking at it play out, right? And then it says, let's see, if the enemies, whether they go out against them, the Lord sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed, right? They were in big trouble, right? And then, nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hands of those that spoiled them, right? So he punished them for a little while, and then he delivered them. He would have a deliverer come and save them to see if they had enough, right? And yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went a-whoring after other gods and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord. But they did not so. Just no. So my question is, how often would any of us get carried away, right? How often will we get carried away? Let's continue. We're going to get a little bit more. Revelation 21:7, and then we're going to move on, okay? We're all this Halloween stuff, and now we're going to move on after this, okay? Revelation 21:7, it says, and he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So you don't want to be among these people. You don't want to be counted in this number, not this number, who are going to have their place in a lake of fire. But let's move on. Now let's go on over to a friendlier. Okay, we just dealt with Halloween, right? We just dealt with that. Okay, we're gonna get into Thanksgiving and get as much as we can. We'll get into Thanksgiving, and then we'll continue. This will be a two-part of holidays, right? This is part one. So Thanksgiving, it's by we know where this genocide was committed. We know it was committed against the Native Americans, right? Okay, and we know the people in the West, the victor calls it Thanksgiving. The people who won calls it Thanksgiving. But what does the Native Americans call it? Well, a lot of them, at least the old school, they call it the National Day of Mourning. So let's go ahead and look at it. And remember, history is told by the victor. Okay, but when you have a remnant of the ones they have that were on the other side of that battle, they have a different story. Two sides to every story, right? So let's listen to the other side. It says Thanksgiving, the National Day of Mourning for Indians, okay, by Moonaman James and Matawin Monroe, right? And then he reads, and this is an article, right, that they wrote, and it says, every year since 1970, United American Indians of New England have organized the National Day of Mourning observance in Plymouth at noon on Thanksgiving Day. Every year, hundreds of Native people and our supporters from all four directions join us. Every year, including this year, Native people from throughout the Americas will speak the truth about our history and about current issues and struggles we are involved in. Why do hundreds of people stand out in the cold rather than sit home eating turkey and watching football? Do we have something against a harvest festival? Of course not. But Thanksgiving in this country, and in particular in Plymouth, is much more than a harvest home festival. It is a celebration of the Pilgrims' mythology. According to this mythology, the Pilgrims arrived, the Native people fed them and welcomed them. The Indians promptly faded into the background, and everyone lived happily ever after. The truth is a sharp contrast to that mythology. Okay, now let's look a little bit deeper, right? The Pilgrims are glorified and mythologized because the circumstances of the first English-speaking colony in Jamestown were frankly too ugly. For example, they turned to cannibalism to survive. Okay, yes, they were cannibals just to survive. They would eat each other, right? So, it says too ugly to hold up as an effective national myth. The Pilgrims did not find an empty land any more than Columbus discovered anything. Every inch of this land is Indian land. The Pilgrims, who did not even call themselves Pilgrims, did not come here seeking religious freedom. They already had that in Holland. They came here as part of a commercial venture. They introduced sexism, racism, anti-lesbian and gay bigotry, jails, and the class system to these shores. One of the very first, now remember, they introduced all these to the shores. The Native Americans didn't know anything about all this stuff. They didn't do that, okay? To the shores. One of the very first things they did when they arrived on Cape Cod, before they even made it to Plymouth, was to rob Wampanoag graves at Cornhill and steal as much of the Indians' winter provisions of corn and beans as they were able to carry. They were no better than any other group of Europeans when it came to their treatment of indigenous people here. And no, they did not even land at that sacred shrine called Plymouth Rock, a monument to racism and oppression, which we are proud to say we buried in 1995. The first official day of Thanksgiving was proclaimed in 1637 by Governor Winthrop. He did so to celebrate the safe return of men from the Massachusetts Bay Colony who had gone to Mystic, Connecticut, to participate in the massacre of over 700 Pinot women, children, and men. Okay, Pigot, men, women, and children. About the only true thing in the whole mythology is that these pitiful European strangers would not have survived their first several years in New England were it not for the aid of Wampanoag people. What Native people got in return for this help was genocide, theft of our lands, and never-ending repression. We are treated either as quaint relics from the past or are, to most people, virtually invisible. See, this is just something from the other side, right? This is from the Native peoples, from their perspective. This is from their perspective. This is the other side. No matter how thin the pancake, is still two sides. Let's keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to read a little bit more, okay? Okay, and if you want to find the article was at, the website is uaine.org, okay? uaine.org, in case you want to read this particular article, right? But let's get a little bit more right here. Say, can we give thanks for the fact that on many reservations, unemployment rates surpass 50%? Our life expectancies are much lower. Our infant mortality and teen suicide rates much higher than those of white Americans. Racist stereotypes of Native Americans, such as those perpetuated by the Cleveland Indians, the Atlanta Braves, the countless local and national sports teams, persist. Every single one of the more than 350 treaties that the Native nations signed has been broken by the U.S. government. The bipartisan budget cuts have severely reduced educational opportunities for Native youth, and the development of new housing on reservations has caused deadly cutbacks in healthcare and other necessary services. Are we to give thanks for being treated as unwelcome in our own country? Or perhaps we are expected to give thanks for the war that is being waged by the Mexican government against indigenous peoples there, with the military aid of the U.S. in the form of helicopters and other equipment. When the descendants of the Aztec, Maya, and Inca flee to the U.S., the descendants of the wash ashore pilgrims term them illegal aliens and hunt them down. We object to the Pilgrim's Progress Parade and to what goes on in Plymouth because they are making millions of tourist dollars every year from the false pilgrim mythology. That money is being made off the backs of our slaughtered indigenous ancestors. Increasing numbers of people are seeking alternatives to such holidays as Columbus Day and Thanksgiving, and they are coming to the conclusion that if we are ever to achieve some sense of community, we must first face the truth about the history of this country and the toll that history has taken on the lives of millions of indigenous, Black, Latina, Asian, and poor and working class white people. The myth of Thanksgiving, served up with dollops of European superiority and manifest destiny, just does not work for many people in this country. As Malcolm X once said about the African American experience in America, we did not land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Exactly. Okay, so I gave you the website there, and then we're gonna finish up a little bit with some 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Let's look at this. I'm gonna start at 14. It says, "Wherefore, dearly beloved, flee idolatry." In verse 20. "But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God." Okay, so they have their traditions. Okay, when you pay homage and you do something like you carve your turkey and you bobbing for apples and you're paying homage to that God and that religion and that culture. That's what you're doing. But he said, you know what? They sacrifice to devils and not to God. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. In 21. "You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils." We can't do that. Biblically, we're not allowed to. And then he says in Deuteronomy 18. Okay? I'm just going to read a little bit of that. You guys already know. Deuteronomy 18 and 9. It says, "And when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God give thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations." Okay? "There not shall be found among you any that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God does drive them out from before thee." So we just dealt with Halloween, where it comes from, and Samhain, Celtic and Gaelic in origins, predating Christianity. Now all the traditions, the being in costume and going door to door, the disguising, and reciting, your trick or treat and give us something good to eat and all those type of things. Where did it come from? Does it honor the Most High? Does it have a pagan origin? Where does that come from? Why are we doing it? So after Halloween, what do we have? We have Thanksgiving. Now, I'm not necessarily saying, okay, it's this long, ancient, pagan holiday. No, it's not. We know it's the American, the Pilgrims, and the Indians, okay, a couple centuries ago. We know. But what's the backstory? What's the backstory? Compare the backstory you've been told growing up to the backstory that you study yourself. When you go look up true origins of, that's all you have to do. And then go deeper. When you go look from the other side, right? You got one side. You got one side telling you the story. You have that. Now go look at the other side. Look at the people who are on the receiving end of it, right? Now I'll tell you what, who knows more about genocide and racism and the degradation and mistreatment, of particular people, right? Who knows more about that, being profiled and stuff like that? Who knows more about that? Shouldn't you ask someone who been through that, who knows about that, who lived with that, who have a certain psychology about that, and then they can tell you what that is? Or are you going to go by someone else who's not that? I'm just saying to get a different perspective is what I'm saying. Right? So I wouldn't go to someone, in a third world country and ask a pygmy or whatever, about the black experience, right? You don't want to do that. You don't know. So, you want to know about Thanksgiving? Go to the other side. And see if it's a day of thanksgiving and celebration for the other side. Okay, so you go find out And if you think that it honors everybody, then eat up, gobble gobble. You do what you must. You do what you want to do. But some truth has been spoken. It's not the whole story. I can only give you a little bit. Only so much can be told in the amount of time that we have. Time, guys. Search the scriptures and prove all things. Shalom, Israel. See you on part 2.